Welcome to Maker Conversations. I'm your host, Tiff Marchand, and today on the show, I have Nicole Dacey from Nicole Dacey Pottery. Nicole is a Massachusetts native, which I learned after the show, but it was really exciting to find out. And she has some great videos out there, kind of adding the lighter side of the pottery world. So she's really funny, you guys. You gotta check her out. And she likes to share tips and tricks as well. I want to say a huge thank you to the show sponsor, Sabertooth. They're an amazing company and they have burrs that will help speed up any kind of carving or shaping that you do. So check them out. Use NIGHTCARVER10 in all caps to save 10%. A huge thank you to all the patrons for the show. I really appreciate your support, and I just want to give a quick shout out to Tracy, Lucille, Ricky, Terry, Lee, Matthew, and B.A. for your support. It means the world to have people who you know and you talk to all the time to, support the show. So thank you very much and enjoy.
Well, thank you for coming on. I totally scrolled your Instagram, by the way. I had to find out because I was like,
yeah, you gotta do your research.
I was like, she's in Los Angeles. I didn't get that vibe from her. And then when I was going down your page,
that's intentional.
I saw Massachusetts stuff, and I was like, oh, she's from where I live. Okay.
Oh, are you in Massachusetts?
I'm in Springfield. Yeah.
Oh, girl. Yeah. Oh,
where are you from?
All right. Well, I'm from it's a smaller town called Spencer. It's like
I've heard of Spencer.
2 towns east of Worcester.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My little town.
Yeah, it's like cool. an hour 10 away. Yeah.
I was actually, now that you're mentioning it, I was going to ask you about you wrote something either in Instagram or email, but you were like, oh, I'm wicked excited. And I was like, stop for a second. Who says that? So I was like, I had to ask. I would have forgotten.
I was just hanging out with my friend Mary Lou, and she was like, does she say things like you? Like, the typical words that people expect in Massachusetts people. And I was like, as I was stalking her, yes.
Sometimes, yeah, it's funny, because you don't think that you have like an accent or anything. I know there are certain words that people use in Massachusetts, but every once in a while someone will be like, oh, you said that like a New Englander, and I'm like, what? I don't hear certain things, but apparently we have some things. So
that's okay. Canadians do too. They have very certain ways they say things that I just, when I interview them, I try not to call it out or make a face, because I'm just like, that's how they say the word. Don't smile. That's how they say the word. Nod.
My dad is Canadian, so I got a little of that too. Yeah.
Mine too. Yep.
Look at that. I mean, I guess if you're from New England, you got Canadian in you, basically.
Well, thank you for coming on. I really do appreciate it, because we don't know each other, but I've been following you for a little while, and what caught my attention, of course, is your reels, because they're hilarious.
Oh my God, it's what everyone comes for.
I know.
You come for the reels, stay for the pottery.
Exactly. Though you have to get people in somehow, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You found a way, just expressing yourself and topics that go along with what you do, so well.
Yeah. When I first started, I remember thinking there's no way you're going to catch me doing a reel that has nothing to do with pottery. You're never going to find me just jumping on a trend because it's trendy. Yep. It has to make sense, because I'm like, there's no reason for me to be doing this and that. Sometimes you'll find in my stories little bits and pieces of my life outside of pottery, but I really try to be focused, and because I'm like, if you want to see any of that other stuff, you can follow other people, but I'm like, this needs to be Nicole and the pottery. And let's throw it on out there.
No, it works well. Did you start them right away when reels came out, or did it take you a little while to get into it?
So I mean, I feel like reels have been around longer than a lot of people think, but when they first came out, people weren't using it in the way that they're using it now for funny and lip syncing and using audio that's not music, so if you go way back in my reels, you can find me using it in the way that it originally started being used, because originally Instagram just did video that you would just put as a post, and they would limit you to that like 60-second or whatever. And then once they started doing reels, it was like, okay, this is how we're going to do those videos. So it's like photo and video reels. Right. So a few of those early ones are just like, here's me and my pottery moving it around in front of a camera, or like, you know, showing different angles, or with some pretty music in the background. And then last summer was when I was like, I think I want to have fun and jump on board with all this funny stuff, because for a really long time, and if you go really far back, like you did the deep dive into the Instagram,
well, I did, but yeah,
like you'll start seeing like where like there's like sections where it's just like totally different vibes, you know, where it's like I've kind of, I don't want to say like reinvented myself, because that sounds really like bougie, but like
like you did. I was gonna comment on it. It was just not just a pottery page, but it was just the pottery page. It was, look at these awesome things that I'm making, check out this angles here. But like once you click on the photos though, your text was all your personality, by the way. Like,
oh yeah,
that shines through though of who you
are. That's
interesting. I did, because I went all the way down. So like the first ones, I can't remember what it was, but like I don't know, I've saw some things like cuts like butter, you know, like things like that. You can I was searching for the Massachusetts language though. That was me. I was like looking for it. Yeah, like butter. But like, but it shows your personality there too. Like, because maybe a picture of something that you created doesn't really show who you are. It might show what you like when you're doing like your different glazes and things like that. But and you know, obviously you carved it. But the text, the text is where I could see you.
I had a really hard time for a long time. Like it's really easy with pottery to be like, okay, I'm going to get into making like mugs, because mugs sell, and I'm going to make bowls and all this, because it's just like when you're a wheel thrower, you're making things that are round, you know.
Right.
And so for a while, it's like you're just learning, and you're a student, and you want to try every style, so you don't have a style. And then you know, you start to get a little more focused. And as I started to get more focused, I was still trying to figure out like what I wanted to make. And I knew I wanted to make more artistic things, but I was like, I want to sell them, and no one knows who I am at this point. So I'm like, I'm going to make mugs. And my husband kept being like, you need a, what was the word he kept using? You need a gimmick. I was like, well, I don't want a gimmick, but he's like, you need something that's like, this is you and no one else. And that's where like, I'm like, well, the Massachusetts stuff. So I had a lot of mugs that had like sayings and stuff on them. But even that, I was like, I kind of got rid of that. And I was like, I think I want to start doing more of this artistic stuff. But I felt like it was a little bit false to me. Like there's a point in time, especially during like the pandemic, where you look at the pictures, especially if you don't read the text, if you just look at the pictures, they're very like pretty and calming, and like, you know, it doesn't feel like me in a way. And I even at one point thought like, maybe I should have one page that's like my fine art page, and one page that's like the funny reels and the like mugs and stuff like that, because I couldn't like, they didn't fit together in my mind. And I was like, it's messed up. But I got to the point where the reels that I was like, this is something I want to do so bad. Like watching other people make these funny reels. And I was like, I could do this really good. Like, I'm like, I know I can do this. This is like who I am, is just like funny, silly, stupid all the time. And trying to hide that side of me, I was like, it feels weird to hide. So when you read the text, you get that. But when you see the picture, it doesn't quite fit. So when I started doing it, I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to dive in. And for a little while, I would put them up on my page, and then just kind of like, I would take them down and just leave them on the Reels tab. So you would have like my main page and my Reels tab.
Yes. When I was talking to you, I was like, oh, she started these not too long ago. I thought she was doing this for a while. And then I clicked on the Reels tab. I was like, okay.
And it's like, not like, I can't go back and change that.
No,
but
I hate that.
It just bothered me that like, you know, I would have these photos that were very curated in a way. And then in the middle would just be like my face and text that was just like, what? It was crazy. And I'm like, this just does not fit. And then I got to the point where
they're very adorable, by the way.
You know, it's very like, it's very clickbaity, you know, where it's just like I usually go through, what I try to do is I film the reel, and then I save it to my phone and I just drag slowly through and I try to find like the most outrageous thing. I try to find the craziest face or the most like, kind of face. I don't know. I'm like, I want people to look at it and be like, okay, what is this? Like, why is she making this face? So it's a little clickbaity, but you got to play the game, right?
No, exactly. Yeah, you got to bring the people in. You got to get the eyes to your page.
Oh, man. And then hopefully they see it and they're like, oh, I get the clickbait and I like it. I like being clickbaited for once. Like when I was first starting, it took me years to get to like the point where basically reels last summer and things going kind of up from there. So years and years of just like going through the muck, like in a way, grinding. Yeah. Oh God, I hate grinding. And so I made some like really great friends in that time period who they kind of had similar followings. Like I'm noticing now that I'm getting more that people with similar followings tend to pay attention to each other more. So like when I was first starting, I'd have these friends who, you know, same kind of follower accounts. And then as I'm getting larger up, people who are now in that tier are paying attention to me now. And I do my best to pay attention to everyone. Like I make it a point to talk to everybody who sends me a message. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not just going to like not follow you or ignore you because of your follower account. Cause I'm like, I've got a long memory. To me, I remember being there and you know, like there's a lot of people who have a ton of followers who I just like, I don't follow them because I'm like, what you're doing is not something I'm interested in. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just not for me. And so I'm not just going to follow someone just because of their count. But
yes, the only reason I'll ever do that is if the person's just truly exceptional and they win me over. And I feel so bad to say, but yes.
But that's a good reason. Like, because if they're exceptional and they win you over, that's the reason you follow them. Like you wouldn't just blindly say, oh, 100,000 followers, boop, let me follow that.
I follow friends and I tell them this to their face, like that do metalwork, that not not pretty metalwork, but like manly metalwork. And I'm not interested in that at all. Like, I don't care how you got that copper fitting into that, you know, but I'm going to follow you because I love you as a person, you know? Like,
I used to follow a lot more people. And then I feel like when the pandemic happened, like a lot of people I had like a lot of mental health issues, and Instagram, I think, exasperated those. And there was a point where I realized I'm like, I cannot follow this many people. It's somehow hurting my brain.
It does.
So I was like, so I was like, I really just want to unfollow. And it took me days to unfollow because Instagram at the time, I don't know if they've changed it.
No, they stop you.
They won't let you add like 200 people. And suddenly they're like, but I had like thousands. I had like 3,000 people or something.
Okay.
And I narrowed it down to 300. And I tried to keep it people I know in real life. Or have known or whatever, people who I know through Instagram really well, like that I've had conversations with a lot, or people who I just like their work really resonates with me. And a lot of times it's not potters. Like following other potters sometimes I don't feel like it's as helpful. I don't know. I love following people who make like glass work or woodworkers or whatever, anyone who makes something that's not pottery, because I feel like pottery's my job at this point. So like when I'm on Instagram at 8 p.m., I don't want to be looking at more pots, you know, I'm like, oh God, show me something different. So it's nice to have, I think, a mix in there. I really like anything that can make me laugh too. So like there's the small biz memes. Oh, I live for that.
Funny. Yes.
Oh my gosh. If you go through my highlights, if you're looking for a little more Nicole humor, if you slide through the highlights, there's one at the very end that says memes.
Okay.
Most of them are made by me, and most of them are ceramics related. So some of them might be a little over your head if you don't remember. But you said you've done it before, right? So you might know.
Yeah.
I remember making them and just laughing so hard. And my husband would be like, "What are you laughing at?" And I'd show him, and he'd be like, "You are so lame." He'd be like, "You are a nerd." And I'm just like, I can't hear you because I'm laughing too hard at my own jokes. But oh God, I love a meme.
Well, especially when they hit home too. Like, yeah. So,
good.
all right, I have to ask the question that, I mean, I'm sure you expected to ask, is how did you get into pottery?
That was the first question I thought you were going to ask is reels, which we covered.
Of course.
And now this is number 2, right?
I don't actually have any planned questions, but I do want to know.
Love it. I love a normal conversation.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I'm
Yeah,
sure other people do too.
they do. They come on here, they're like, oh wait, did we start yet? I'm like, yeah, we started.
I literally was gonna ask that, but I saw the little thing and the thing pops up that says
Yep.
you have to accept that like we are being recorded. And I was like, all right. I was like, is she gonna edit any of this or is it just dive in?
No, it gets fully
And then when you
edited
didn't
after.
say anything, I'm like, okay, this is definitely just a dive right in, which is fine by me. How did I get into pottery? So it's kind of like a slow crawl to it. It was I think when I first thought I wanted to get into it was after college, but I first started doing it a little bit mostly in college. Like I did that like the 1 week of high school ceramics in art class. Like we had a pretty small school and small like budget and everything. So there was one art class and it was just general art. So you'd be like painting week 1, drawing week 2, pottery week 3, you know.
Exposure.
So there was no ceramics.
Yeah.
So I did that in like 8th grade and then in like 10th or 11th or something. But I remember liking it a lot. And then when I was in college, I did my degree. I have 2 degrees in art history.
Okay.
Am I using them? Not really. Am I still in debt? Sure. But
kudos to you, art history, man. Those were the classes that were hard for me, staying awake.
Oh my
I'm
God.
like,
those were the easy ones for me. That's why I went into it because I was like, is this me? Is it easy or is it just me? You know, and everyone I talked to was like,
if you like facts, it must be something that
oh my God, I love history. I love art. I love facts. I love remembering like dates and stuff. To me, it's like history is just like listening to story time, and art history is just story time with pictures. Like you just got to remember the general dates and you're good to go. But I with art history degrees, most of them want you to do fine art, like studio classes.
Yep.
So I did a drawing class. Not great.
No,
that
not
was
for you.
That was a little rough. Like it was probably better than I thought, but like I like scraped by with a B in that class, like really, you know, clawing my way to that B. So after that I was like, what's left? What else can I take that's not like a 2D class? And I was like, oh yeah, pottery, I can do that. So the teacher I had, she was a sculptor, so the class was almost 100% hand building. Okay. And which was great. It was like really exploring themes and stuff. But then after that, I started working in an art museum, and they had it was an art museum with an art school attached in Framingham.
Oh, that's cool.
And they were like, oh, one of the perks of working here, you can take 1 free art class a semester, drawing, painting, whatever it is. And I was like, well, not doing the drawing again.
Yeah, we know where that went.
So, yeah, I was like, no, thank you. Especially considering you're among other people who actually can draw. And I was like, I don't need this. So I'm like, oh, I'll do this wheel throwing class. And it's like, I just kept taking it semester after semester for a number of years. And then when was it? 2016, that art museum was purchased by Framingham State University. And they were like, we have to move buildings and everything, and we can't take the pottery studio with us. So we ended up, me and a bunch of other people, like some of the teachers and some of the like students and stuff, we were like, what if we just started our own pottery studio? So we ended up, it's such a weird, like,
that's cool though.
It's a weird situation because we got linked up with do you know SMOC? So no. It's the South Middlesex Opportunity Council. Okay. And that's based in Framingham. It's social services and kind of, you know, help the community. And they wanted to have art programs for some of their clients that were in like recovery programs and this and that. Cool. Yeah. So we got linked up to them and they were like, hey, we can basically like fund you and be your umbrella and you can run this program for all your students and teachers. And we can put our people in it, which I was like, oh, win-win. So so it's still open and running. It's called Community Kiln. I left after a year to move out here to LA. And since then I've just been teaching, making my own stuff and kind of doing just the pottery thing full time.
That's amazing. So you're teaching full time, then that's great though. Yeah,
the teaching is, I do 3 classes a week. They're all wheel classes. I do a beginner, an intermediate, and then something kind of in between those two, kind of a bridge class.
To get them to that level.
Yeah, because our the way the studio runs, it's called the Pottery Studio. They have a bunch of locations at this point, but they do month-long classes. So when you take a beginner class, you meet once a week for 4 weeks. So you learn wedging and throwing week 1, trimming your pots week 2, week 3. Some teachers do it differently, but it's like handle making or extra throwing, and then glazing week 4. And then it starts up again. Same exact thing. So it's very structured.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of students get intimidated when they watch the intermediate class. They're like, oh, I can't do that. I can barely throw a mug.
Yeah.
So
I do something else. Yeah.
So we kind of a few years ago came up with this in-between level that we call returning beginners, where it's like, okay, work on those skills, bump them up a little bit, try some new shapes, and then when you're ready, go to intermediate.
I agree with all of those people though. Yeah, you do need that okay, I learned it, that's great, but I want to practice it a little bit more.
Yeah. Early on, we had so one of our teachers, Skylar, who's been there since like the very beginning. Like this studio has exploded in the last few years and has so many more locations. But when we first started, it was this tiny little one in Atwater Village. And Skylar was one of the original like first teachers, and he would teach the intermediate classes, and he's so proficient on the wheel. He's so skilled, and like I love watching him throw. It's just like, it's beautiful. And he would be like, all right, guys, we're gonna make like a 10-inch platter today, and he'd be throwing like huge amounts of, or like a 10-pound platter. Like he'd be making these enormous, huge, impressive things, which probably were outside of the range of his actual students, but it was kind of like, look what we can do. And if I make it bigger, you can see it as well from your seat and all these things. And I think the beginner students would see that and be like, hell no, hell no, could I do that? And so it got to the point where it's like, people just weren't going to the next class. It's intimidating sometimes when you watch a more advanced.
So you pivoted and you're making it happen. That's good.
Yeah, it's really great. It's a good place. Yeah.
Have the reels?
I was going to say
something
something else,
classes?
but then I just blanked.
What's that? It's fine. Have the reels helped you book more classes? Like, does it get people to go, or is there a disconnect there?
I don't know, because I don't book the classes. So I don't actually know. Maybe. I think because it's such a local thing, it would have to be people who locally have found me and found my reels. I do have people who they'll come to me in the studio and be like, hey, I know you. And I'll be like, at this point, I'm like, I know why you know me. Yeah. At first it was weird because I'd be like, oh, okay. Like, how do you know me? Because I'm not from here. So there's that. Some people just randomly will show up and be like, I know you. And then there's other people who will take my class and then later like look me up, or another student who I've had for a while will be like, oh, you have to go look at her reels. And it's interesting how you're the girl who does the funny reels, or like, oh, you're the girl who does those reels. Or I think the way people explain it, I'm like, I can tell like someone's attitude towards it, like, oh, you're weird, or like, oh, you're really funny. Most people are really friendly about it. Yeah. Even the people who think I'm weird.
You're like, yes, I am. And next.
And I'm like, thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
I take that as a great compliment.
I always say weirdos are like my favorite people. I like people who just like show who they really are, because we all are weirdos, but no one shows it.
Yeah, I think it also like relaxes people more when they can be themselves. You know, I there was a long time where I was like, oh, I'm going to be someone different because I think that's what a potter should be, or that's what, you know, an artist should be, or I want to be taken seriously as a fine art ceramicist and all this. And it's like you put on this persona of that, and you're just uncomfortable. And I think people can read that. And when you stop giving a flying crap about it and you're like, this is me, I'm weird, and I'm gonna just do what makes me feel happy and comfortable, and like I'm gonna run for that, you know, then people read that on you, and then I think it's easier to like chat. Like I could tell you and I, this is the second podcast I've done.
I saw you and I did one.
Yeah. So the oh God, I'm blanking because I'm thinking about yours now. I think it's called The Maker's Playbook. So Rebecca, when she logged on and I saw her face when we started talking, within like seconds, I was like, oh, I like this person.
Yeah.
And it's like, same with you. You logged on. And I mean, we've been chatting through like Instagram DMs, and stuff. Yeah. You logged on and I was like, oh, I like this person. Instantly comfortable and easy to talk to you. And same with her. And I'm like, I feel like people like that usually are the people who are like, I know my brand, I know who I am, I know what I'm doing, I'm gonna be me, and I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah, I think honestly, like launching the podcast, like I have had 3. I have 2 active
Great.
ones, and then I had one before that kind of got me started.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like starting those allowed me to be me more in my videos, my reels, because I was finally showing everybody who followed me, who didn't talk to me in DMs, who didn't know the real me.
Sure.
You know, I was showing the rest of the people like, oh, this is that crazy person. Like, because I'm highly inappropriate most of the time. Like, if I really know a person, I like kick into flirty Tiffany. But like, yeah, she has to be controlled sometimes, though.
You need to give her a different name, a different persona.
Tanya.
Yeah. That's a perfect name.
Always in my fake name.
Oh yeah. My fake name has always been Chloe. She is my flirty girl. So she's my that girl, my it girl, my flirty girl. She's the one that does everything good. Like my husband and I, we wake up in the morning, go for a run before the day starts. And when I'm having like a tough time and I'm like sluggish, I get in my brain and I'm like, all right, Chloe, let's go. And I'm like, I tell her, I'm like, what would Chloe do? She would run faster and she would pick up those knees and whatever. And this is awesome. TMI. Like this is getting really out there. This is the secret side of Nicole and Tiffany.
Getting real wild. Tanya was that stupid name I would give people at the bar if they were talking to me and I didn't care about them. But I was just like, what's your name? And it's just like, I actually hate that name. Sorry if any Tanyas listen to this.
It's not a very common name anymore.
No, it's not. It was back in the day. Yeah, this is when I was like 22 or something, you know? 18 years ago now. Yeah. That's okay.
Did you just do that math in your head?
I did. Quick math. That's what, I'm 40. It's really easy to do that now.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. That makes a lot of sense then. Yeah.
The math was very, very simple. I don't want to act like that was like super challenging.
Oh my God. I mean, even the simplest math, it betrays me. Like subtraction. Who are you? God.
But art history though. What was your plans? Did you want to work in a museum? Is that what the original goal was?
Well, throughout the degrees, it changed a bit. So when I first got into it, I was like, oh, I would love to own like a gallery and have like small kind of gallery shows with individual artists or whatever. Cool. It would be cool. Yeah. I ended up like and this is still a very proud moment for me. Like when I was a student, we had a class that was like focused on doing and setting up a gallery show. And it was at the Mass College of Liberal Arts. And they had up in North Adams in the Berkshires, and they had a gallery that was like part of the school. And so this class would get to basically take it over for a season or however long they do their shows. And so we were in charge of doing a number of things. And I don't know how this happened, but it was like me and another guy who ended up kind of running the show.
The whole thing.
And we were kind of in charge of finding artists and basically curating this thing. And there were people who were in charge of like the marketing and this and that, and like whatever your kind of interest was. I think
that's a cool one to be in though, finding artists.
Yeah. So we ended up putting out a call for artists, kind of choosing all the ones we thought were really great, and doing a very final walkthrough with like the teachers to make sure that we weren't picking anything that was like, well, this doesn't really fit the theme or whatever. And during the night of the show, like the teacher came up to me, she was like, you have a really good eye for contemporary art. And I was like, tears, like, so I was like, oh my gosh, this is so wonderful. So I was like, oh, this is right up my alley. I'm going to totally go into like contemporary art, gallery work. And I can't remember what kind of got me out of that idea. I think it was the idea of having to do anything with business. I was like, I hate businesses. I hate numbers and crunching money. Oh my God, I hate it. I'm doing it now anyway, but
I was going to say, you're probably totally doing this now. Yeah.
I am let's not talk about that. Struggling through learning how to be a business person is not. Yeah. When you're an artist, you're not always a business person. Turns out.
I'm literally just doing it now. I've only been full time for 2 months now. So I have,
for you.
I have to learn.
Don't
all
ask
of
me
that.
for help.
No. I actually had, like, before I did it, I totally met with another maker that was doing it already for 3 years, and he had like this kind of stuff under his belt. And he was from Massachusetts. Like he fit everything. Cause I'm like, I want to know Massachusetts laws and this and that. And I want to ask you every question I can. So that's the power of the podcast though. Cause I met Like I invited him to be on my podcast. I got to know him. I found out those details that he had a business degree, like, and then I followed up. Yeah.
Perfect.
I followed up like
Oh,
8 months later. And I'm like, can we hang out again? Just like not I'm like, can we record it, but just for me?
Yeah, you're like, remember all that free advertising through my podcast that I gave you? It's time to cash in. Time to get that info into my brain.
You know what's funny is like, though, everyone I have on here, though, we end up helping each other along the way, which has been really fun.
Yeah.
They're looking for an artist who does this, so they recommend me, like we all kind of like give each other work.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's the kind of community that I just love because it's amazing.
I mean,
Just like-
having like a long conversation with someone too, it's like you
Mhm.
get off the podcast and then you're linked now, and you could you're comfortable asking each other questions and helpfulness and whatever. Like Rebecca, the other podcast I did, she is a photographer, and I just recently sent her a message and I was like, I need to buy a tripod for my camera because the one I have is from Amazon and it's like $12 and it doesn't support the weight of my camera. What do I need? She was like, oh my God, and typed and sent me all this stuff, and I was just like, you're the best. This is such a good
100%.
connection.
Yeah, we do that all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, right. And then it's a slippery slope. You buy one tool and you're like, what other tools are there? God, I love tools. Potters love tools. I'm sure woodworkers too. And I've learned a lot between woodworkers I follow and stuff, that there are so many similarities between pottery and like hand building and making wood by hand, making things out of wood by hand, and then like turning and trimming and throwing on the wheel are all like really similar too. Obviously different tools for different mediums, but such similarities. I'm sure like if you went from one to another, there'd be some transferable skills there.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Like if you wanted to go and try using a lathe right now, it's a whole different concept with how you approach it, but you could be.
Imagine just amazingly good at it. Surprise yourself.
People like, wait, what just happened to this page? She was just like cutting a nice ribbon of clay off the top of a bowl, and now she's flinging wood chips. Like, what is going on?
Yeah. I've just changed entirely who I am. 100% different person. I'm like, this is now a woodworking page, and all the memes and reels will be related to woodworking jokes. Just
think of all the new content.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna have to start diving into that. It's all about content. Everything's content.
That stupid song, man. It's so good though.
Right.
Because it's so true.
I still haven't watched it. I wanted to because I really love Bo Burnham, but like I haven't watched it yet.
I haven't either, but just like you hear it on Instagram all day, and then it stays in your head, and like when you're doing stuff, I'm sure it's playing in your head like, I should film this. Everything is content. You're like,
I get like so many reels stuck in my head, and but just like clips, like tiny sections of a song or just like words in my head. And like I don't know how other people film theirs. Like when I first started filming them, I would just put the camera on, right? Like you're in Instagram. A lot of people said like film in Instagram because it's meant to be filmed inside Instagram. You'll get better, whatever. Which I disagree with at this point.
I don't like filming in Instagram, so no.
I don't either.
I don't
either. I feel like everything starts from a point of compressed audio and video, and almost like it sucks. But I would put it up and I would put the audio and I would just try and match it up, and I would be like, oh, it didn't match up, so I got to do it again and again. And now I'm at a point where like recently this past year I bought a new phone. My old phone is like, it's still working. It's still okay. It's just like the camera on it was like tinting everything green, and it just was a crappy quality. It just needed to get upgraded basically. So the new one's great. So I set up the new phone with the camera, and it's actually the camera. I'm not in Instagram. The other one, I open Instagram and I turn the audio on for the reel. And I just put it, where you can click like 3 second or 10 second, like basically countdown, and then the video starts. I'll put it on like 3 or 10 second or whatever part I need to do. And it just loops, loop, loop, loop. So I got the camera just running on me the whole time. And I've got this audio just looping in the background, loop, loop, loop. And I film as many takes as I need to feel like I got it. And then I'll go into the actual, like, I do mine in shot. And so you can hear in the background it looping, and I kind of clip until I find the one I like. And then I'll just like, this is so complicated. Like people don't know how much time goes into these reels at this point.
Yes. No, it's true.
But Yeah, and so like then I'll go in and I'll basically like audio like screenshot, video shot. I don't know what the word for it is. What is it? Screen grab? I don't know.
Screen
The
grab,
like
screenshot, yeah.
yeah, basically making a video of the audio because you can in InShot extract audios from videos.
Yes. Yep.
And then I line it up. I make sure everything is like working, really lined up, and then that goes into Instagram with the actual audio. And it's such a big to do, but because I'm doing this
I
and I've
love
got
that,
this looping audio, I'll be like laying in bed at night and I'll just be like,
Oh,
bloop, 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 bloop. Like when that Louis threw like my money don't jiggle jiggle, you know, when that came up nonstop in my head. I'm sure everyone else too on this planet, but
yeah.
it was a good one.
So
But
as you're saying that, I actually just charged my old iPhone today, so now I'm like, oh, I could do that. I could do that.
See, this is where the reciprocity, you know, will come in. If you need help with this, and you were
Right?
like, "Hey, how do you do that again?" I feel like it's so much easier. It's like you're just filming a bit more, so you've got to kind of like, you know,
Well, 'cause,
find your clips and stuff.
Normally, you would just do that awkward thing where you stop, you check. Oh no, like you said, I have to re-record that now
yeah,
instead of
and
just
I feel like
going.
yes, and part of the problem with doing that on Instagram is like everything's fine. You're like, it looks great. You click next, and suddenly it's out of sync, and you're
Yep.
like, what happened? Or like something goes wrong and you lose something, or it's just.
I would see
I
that
feel
all
like
the
for an
time.
app that's trying to like compete with TikTok, become TikTok basically, and be a video app, they sure don't have anything going good
No.
for them. You know, it's like everything's glitchy and having problems constantly. And
Their editing should be like you're in InShot. Like it should
oh
be
yeah,
so friendly. It should be easy,
yeah,
and it's not. And I find InShot to be extremely easy. I've tried so
yeah.
many different apps, and that one is just like it's the best. Like in my
It's really
opinion.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've only found one thing recently that I'm having a hard time with. Like I'm trying to get into doing more like original videos, which is hard because then you have to actually just be funny, which is not always easy. But I did one recently where I wanted to do sort of like a slow-mo part of it where I would slow down and have the audio be that low kind of
Oh, yeah.
moo, yeah. Basically a cow sound, moo. And InShot, I can't figure out, and maybe someone right now is going to be screaming at this being like, this is how you do it, but I can't figure out how to just take the audio and slow that down. You can slow a video down, and if the audio is in the video, it will slow with it. But if you just have audio, I can't figure out how to do it. So
well, hopefully, yeah, I was gonna suggest how to do it with
someone
the video,
DM
but
me.
yeah.
No, don't DM me because you're gonna watch this like months from now or listen to it months from now and be like, "Hey Nicole, we figured it out."
It's actually
and
coming
I'm
out
like,
pretty fast. So,
but I'm sure people, you know, find this podcast. You know, someone will find it in like 2023 and go through all your episodes, and it'll be like November 2023, and someone's gonna be
random
like,
person. Did you ever?
Yeah, right. I'm gonna be just getting one or two random messages for the rest of my life. I don't mind if you're nice. I don't mind.
I was gonna say, I hope so.
Yeah, me too.
But I had a question. Now I totally lost it. But that's okay.
My mom would have said it must have been a lie, but I guess it
must have been. It must have been a lie.
Such a mom thing to say.
I've never heard that one. It must have been a lie.
Like my mom. If you're like, oh, I was gonna say something and I forgot. Must have been a lie. What does that say about my mom? She's just a liar.
She's trying to tell you it must have not have been important enough, but it usually is. It's always someone that you really wanted to ask and you're like trying to hold on to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, no.
I mean, that must be kind of tricky if you're like, part of the beauty of this conversation is it's a conversation, 100%. Which is that's what happens is you lose things, but you got to keep like a little notebook under you and just secretly be like, yeah, write it down and be like,
I'm just really bad at writing on it, but it's totally right next to me. Yeah.
I keep my notes too. I'm like, just in case, you know, this is like when people call and ask you for your address and you're like, what is my address? I write down like anything. I write my phone number down in case someone asks me because I won't know off. Like the doctor's like, is your phone number still the same? And I'm like, I don't know. Let me check. I wrote it down. Horrible at that.
Listen, adulting is hard in general, and you know you have to add those kind of things like doctors and those
Ew.
important calls that you just don't want to make. I'm the worst at those. I get like such anxiety before I make
Me
them.
too. I have to psych myself
Yeah.
up and like put it on a schedule for like days from
Yes.
now. And it's like if I make a call to like a doctor's appointment, I have to clear my schedule that
Yeah.
day.
It's a big deal.
That-
It is.
Yes, if I made a doctor's appointment, I am like I'm done for the day. I did the one thing I needed to do. Time to go watch Netflix all day.
Nobody like believes me that I have like social anxiety because I do this.
Oh
And
my God.
I'm like,
Ooh.
I've grown up with it. Like I wouldn't order dinner at a restaurant because I was so shy to do it. But I'm like, but I've done this so much now. I'm chill. Like I really do want to know you. So I'm like, I'm gonna get on here and I'm gonna do it, you know?
I was actually thinking about this ahead of time because like leading up to these kinds of things, I get so nervous. Like I took some CBD gummies. I was like, I need to chill out. But I was thinking about you and I'm like, she must be like an extrovert or something. Because the idea of just logging on, having never talked to a person and just being like, let's talk is terrifying to me. So I'm like, she must have this down at this point or something. But I mean, I guess the more you do something, the easier it gets.
No, 100%. Yeah. The more you do something, the absolutely easier it gets.
I think like I do get a lot of people who say to me like, oh, I wish I could do reels like you, or even just like talk to in stories or something like that. And I'm like, I remember when I first started talking to the camera in like my Instagram stories, it took me an hour to do like 15 seconds because I would stumble over my words and be like, oh God, I gotta redo that. Now I stumble over them and I just keep going and I'm like, I don't care.
That's
like, did I just say a weird word?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Let's lean into that.
I have something like I said it so I just like there's a couple words in a reel that I recently did that I hate, but I wasn't gonna re-record that. Do you know what I mean? I'm like everything in it is so perfect and spot on. And then I make like 3 or 4 bad word choices and I'm like, no, that's good. You have like you just have to kind of live with it. The only problem is like when you go to answer questions and it starts playing again and you hear that word, you're like, mute.
Just crushes your soul. I know. Yeah. I don't know if so I did one recently, a reel recently that was like the skeleton in my closet. And I just
watched it. Yeah.
Which there's another one coming out soon. Let me tell you. I'm so excited. I love this one. But so because this wasn't like a reel from audio, it was just me talking. It's like I just put the camera and just kind of did my lines and stuff. And so there were a lot of weird moments. And I also like in between make a lot of weird faces or like something happens or like I'll just kind of need to get like something out. So I'll start shaking or dancing around or something. So I have all this like basically like bloopers reels. And for this one, I was like, oh, I'm going to take them and make a bloopers reel. And it was like, it made me laugh so much. I'm like, if it makes me laugh, I'm going to post it. You know, it's going to make you laugh. But like, I'm thinking about it because one of the ones I said the word blurb and I was like, blurb? I was like, what is that? It's just like, I just combined 2 words and just was like, whoops, start over. But
it gets you. Yeah.
It made me laugh.
I released one of those. I had, I was trying to get a picture holding all 4 of those Ninja Turtles. And they kept falling. They were slipping out of like, so I was just trying to, and then I realized after I did that is I never actually took the photo.
Oh, funny. I mean, it's like perfection is totally overrated. And I find that like, if you want to gain followers, if you want, you know, people to get to know you better, it's like, you just have to like put out all the human stuff, you know, you got to put out the mistakes, you know, stumbling over your words, not being able to do things properly. Like I totally get at the beginning where you're like, I'm only going to post a video of me throwing a pot if it's really well done. And then you get to the point where it's like, okay, but I've posted me throwing the same pot 100 times over the past however many years. Like what else can I show? How about if I show my bloopers? How about if I show up me messing up on the wheel or whatever? And like, do you know Florian Gadsby?
No.
Great name, first of all. Great name.
But
Gadsby with a D. So GADSBY or I don't know. But you just type in Florian and
I was gonna say I'm gonna totally
he'll pop up. Yeah. And so he
I do follow him. Yes.
He's amazing, a really amazing potter, but he's also amazing because he's very generous with teaching people how to do things. And he recently started a YouTube channel as well. That's just like in-depth details about how he does stuff. And one of the things that he does that has just hit with people are his blooper reels. It's just him, because he's constantly filming.
Yep.
So inevitably he's just going to mess up. And those apparently get higher views than anything he posts.
I'm sure they do.
Which is fantastic. I love watching him. You know, like when he's throwing a normal pot, I'm like, oh, I've seen a normal pot being thrown. I want to see you mess up. You know, love it.
No, I just got his page and I do. Yeah. And his stuff it's so, he makes so much. Like he's always working. Like he just has stacks on top of stacks of just things that he's constantly working on. It's crazy.
I don't know how some people do it. Like there are a few people in the pottery world who have like really high follower counts for a reason. Like they're just cranking out content and it's like helpful and amazing work and useful stuff. It's not like it's just like putting content out for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
And those are the people who with the high counts that I follow. We were talking about this at the beginning, but like those are the people I'm like, oh my God, yes. And I'm like, I will never be that person. You know, I feel like I am almost at capacity. Like there's a ton of stuff I want to do still that's going to like increase how many hours I have to like put into this, but I love my downtime. Oh, I love it. I love having like my commute is to my garage unless I'm teaching and I have to go to the studio to teach. But I love being able to kind of like start my day at like 9 or maybe 10 or maybe 10:30, you know, and then like 4 o'clock rolls around and I'm like, I think I'm gonna have a cup of coffee and maybe end my day early and watch some Netflix. And like I'm totally into like, you know, I just
relax it. Yeah.
I start everything with like, is it going to make me happy? Am I going to like doing this and love my life? And I would rather be like, I'm a part-time potter, you know, and then obviously there are people who are like, I have to do this full time. It is my career and I need to make money to pay rent and that's fine, but it's not me. So I'm just like, whatever I want to do and whatever makes me happy is where I start. So grind culture is not my culture.
Yeah, you found a way though to get in there to do something that is adding to it though. You did put more work on yourself with the reels.
I did, yeah. And I think it came at a good time for me because I was moving into a house that I was moving from an apartment to a house. I'm in LA, but I'm not in LA. I'm like just outside of it.
Yep.
And moving from like more of a city into more of a rural area and like we're in a larger house and I was like time to build out an actual home studio for the first time ever, you know, before I was just commuting to go to a studio. And so I wasn't making anything from like March until maybe like June or July. And that's around when I started the reels too. So I was like, oh, I don't have anything on my plate. I might as well do this. It's been getting trickier since like pretty much since this year kind of started right around the holidays, because now I'm like, I need to, like I put out a website recently, making like a lot of work. I'm really trying to focus my work. Like I spent a lot of time being like, what do I want to make? Stuff that's going to be on my website. And now I'm kind of in the production stage of it. And so I've got that. And then I'm like, oh, and I'm still doing the reels thing. And now I'm trying to make more original reels, which also is hard and harder in totally different ways. I'm gonna try to start a Patreon soon and I want to start a YouTube. So I've got like all this stuff and I'm like, when am I going to do this? When am I going to watch Netflix? Like, when am I going to have my downtime?
That's why I watch Netflix when I'm designing and doing like my like my designing time. It's always on when I'm painting. So like when you're glazing, you're gonna have it on in the background. Because that's the like honestly, I have to sneak it in. So I am a grinder. I am a workaholic. Like I just keep going. And I have like, you know, twin boys that are I think asleep now. I think they're sleeping. But yeah, I I have to fit in my TV, my Netflix, and my you know, Amazon Prime, whatever I feel like getting in when I can. So I totally am. But sometimes I'll give myself a migraine because I'm trying to work on a spreadsheet to plan out the podcast or something and edit a podcast and I'm trying to do this and I'm like,
oh, you're trying to multitask too many things. Yeah. Well, I'm not good at multitasking. I'm not good at like I can split my attention for some things, but I'm not good at juggling multiple projects or big things. Like my hobbies are almost like non-existent because I'm like, I need to do pottery.
Yeah, I need to
That's my
focus.
that's my hobby and my job at this point, you know.
Mhm.
But yeah, I feel like sometimes there's some points of the creating, like when I need to focus on creating something new out of nothing. So like when I'm throwing on the
Yep.
wheel, it's like I can't have anything on. Maybe music, but I won't hear it, you know? I usually just have silence. It's just dead silence.
That's your
But
therapy.
yeah, but then when I get to things like trimming, it's a little bit more like taking off all that excess clay is like I don't have to think about it. It's just a little more like repetitive, you know, work. You know, I don't have
Well,
to be
you've usually
creative.
probably saved up a few things too, right? And you're kind of going through them.
Yeah. So you like you hopefully batch things, you know, if
Yeah.
you're making X amount of mugs one day and then you're gonna trim them all the next day. So you're trimming. That's the kind of stuff I could put something on in the background. But a lot of I don't know about you, but it's like if I have my Netflix on, it can't be anything interesting. Or it
No,
has to be something I've seen
stupid stuff.
before.
Yep. No,
Yeah,
it
because
does.
it's like if it's so interesting, suddenly you're staring at it and you're like, this is amazing. Like I watched last year, I watched 12 Years a Slave trying to trim pots. I trimmed like two and it was just sitting there sobbing and watching this and I was just like, this is what am I doing? It was so good, but I was like, this is the wrong thing to watch.
Well, that's
Throw
the
on some
thing.
Harry Potter, throw on some New Girl, and I'm just like, good. Just
Yeah, I'll be working away, and then I notice that I all of a sudden I'm leaning on my hand and I'm looking over here. I'm like, no, no,
yeah.
that's supposed to be just in the corner. Stop it.
Yeah,
Like
you're like there.
people keep going, like, you've never seen Stranger Things? I'm like, no, I've tried, but then I was doing other stuff, and then I couldn't see what was on the screen, so I had to give up on it, like until I actually have time to actually watch it, you know?
Well, it's only good the first like 2 seasons. Just, you know. Just get through those first few seasons and then you can put it on in the background. You won't miss anything.
Don't miss anything.
But like people are probably screaming at me right now.
I'm sure. But like there's those things though, like there's some shows that you just can't multitask. Like it has to be, like you said, something kind of generic. Give me an Adam Sandler movie, like something that I've seen a million times. Yeah.
Adam Sandler, he's my guy.
Some Billy Madison, just slap that on. Just let it go.
Have you seen his Halloween one? Hubie Halloween.
Yes.
So good. It's in the Halloween rotation now.
Well, he brought Julie Bowen back, so you have to love that he brought her back from Happy Gilmore, you know? So
good. Yes. Oh, what a great guy.
Like that. When I was scrolling your page earlier and you had mentioned you got into a different phase where you tried doing the whole mass hole thing and I could tell. I saw that big shift and then I saw you shift away from it fairly quick. Like it was like a period. You're like, nope, let me pivot that. I like that you do that. Like you have to experiment. You have to try doing new things. You gotta when you're new, you have to try to make things that you think you're gonna sell for your area or wherever you're trying to market. And then you have to be true to yourself after a while because you will burn out so quick.
The funny thing about all the like we called it the mass hole pottery because I was making it when I first moved out here to LA. And I'm wondering if it's just like I was like, I miss home and it's like my roots or whatever. But it was also sort of one of those situations where it's like, well, like when people say if you're going to write a book, like write what you know. And so it's sort of like, well, I'm just going to make what I know. And this is like, and plus I was like, it makes me laugh and like, you know, it's funny little sayings and it's very niche. So I'm like, I can make these. Like right around there is where like I moved out here. So I got, I don't know how much you know about like firings and kilns and stuff, but in case anyone listening does not, there are different temperatures you fire at.
Yep.
Two of the most common ones we call cone 6 and cone 10. And it's basically 6 is down here and then you get hotter and you're up at cone 10, right? So before I moved out here, the studio I was at fired in electric kilns. It was cone 6 clay and cone 6 glazes, specially formulated for those temperatures. Gotcha. And then we moved out here and everything out here is like cone 10. It's really strange how it's like, it was hard to find cone 10 in Massachusetts, hard to find cone 6 out here. I don't know.
It has to be like the atmosphere, the pressure or something.
Maybe it was like gas kilns all over the place out here rather than electric. And so like the studios I went to, they would just have entirely different sets of glazes and clays, which is common. I mean, any studio you go to is going to have their own kind of glaze situation, but depending on your area, a lot of studios will buy clay from the same supplier, so a lot of clays will at least be similar.
Yeah.
So I go out here and it's like so basically I just have to relearn, like I have to learn all these new glazes and how they interact with each other. And so there's a bit of just kind of experimenting and making stuff. And then I started getting into that like mass hole style and stuff. And I think they did okay, especially with like people I knew, obviously. But that was when I first started selling things too.
Yep.
So it was like I started making to sell rather than selling things I made. And it just felt yucky and I did not like it. And I was like, why do I hate pottery right now? I was like, I hate what I do.
I did that for 3 years, like making stuff for things. And it was just like, no, and I just started making horror art. I'm like, I need to know. And I changed my name, like I rebranded. I have to leave all that behind. That's not me. Yeah, I had to do that.
Yeah, I started finding like, I started getting into a situation where I was like, I'm starting to explore a style I like I kind of started to lose the mass hole stuff and I was starting to get into it. And then, because I jumped to a different studio. The one I was at when I was first here, they didn't have as many hours as I needed. And then I jumped to a studio the one I'm teaching at now, that is a 24-hour studio. And so again, new glazes, same clays, but new glazes. And so once I started getting, I was like, oh, I'm liking where this is going. That's like right when everything started closing down, pandemic year. And I was like, oh God. And a lot of this, like being stuck in my house and all this like mental health stuff I went through this phase of just like, I don't want to see anything, period. I want to see beige and white and blank walls. Like I just wanted to have like no stimulus coming at me. I couldn't handle it. Like I remember reading the Marie Kondo book, and one of the things she said was like, if you have like in your bathroom like shampoo bottles that have text on it, and your soap has text on everything that has text on it, that's all like you're constantly filtering and processing it. So I started taking everything out of my house that was like affecting me and just like minimizing everything. And my pottery was really affected by it too. I was like white glaze, like it was very minimal and very kind of bland. It was very kind of pretty and whatever, but it wasn't until like a little while after that where I was like starting to make things that started to feel like me again and getting into what I'm making now and stuff. But I can't remember what you had asked about this. I'm just going at this point.
I like it. No, it's good.
Yeah.
It's fun. Thank you seriously for coming on and hanging out, and
no, it's been so much
slide
fun.
In my DMs with any potters. You hit me up with those potters names.
I'll make sure to do it audio only in my deep seductive voice. Look at y'all those names.
Hey Tiff, I think we should hang out with
Tanya.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey Tanya. You know what I feel like I'm impersonating. Oh, never mind. You don't like scary movies, but I was gonna say the killer from Scream, because you know he had the voiceover.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I'm impersonating him.
I've watched a surprising number of horror movies for someone who cannot stand horror movies.
Well, because people want to watch them or something like that.
Yeah, especially when you're younger and you're in your teens and 20s. Everyone's like, let's do it. And then afterwards, I'm like, can we watch cartoons or something to get this out of my head?
Yes.
It's like a sleepover and everyone's like, you're weird. I'm like, that's okay with me. We've already established this.
Exactly. All right. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Later.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed getting to know Nicole. I have been following her for a long time and really, really like what she puts out there. If you're going to the Maker Camp in the Catskills in New York, I am going to be there with Sadie Mae from the Awesome Orange, and we are going to be doing power carving demos. We have 2 awesome sponsors sending in some wood, so we'll be in the Sabretooth tent, first of all, and Sabretooth is sending over 100 bits, burrs, wheels. Like, we're going to have a nice little variety. We won't have any buzz outs, if you're looking to try those. We won't have those, but we're going to have pretty much everything else that they have. It's going to be a really good time. And then we have Miller's Rustic Sawmill. They sell different wood blanks on their website, and I reached out to them and they were willing to send us some really cool things. So we're going to have bowl blanks, we're going to have live slabs, and then we're going to have 1-inch thick wood, a variety of species. And we also have, Sadie was able to talk to Forest the Home, and they're sending us a nice big kit of wood as well. So we're going to have a great variety, and it's going to be a lot of fun. If you want to help support this show, it is patreon.com/makerconversations. And I just want to say I really appreciate it. So thanks and have a great day.